Yeah, so that's the first point. The first point is that to understand consciousness requires some radical thinking, and indeed consciousness itself was a response to a radical environment where an organism lived on the verge of survival. So whether you can consider that hominids who lived in that era under growth stresses were truly alive in that sense, because all the time they were having to deal with environmental stress, and perhaps like a lot of animals under those circumstances, it doesn't necessarily help to be aware of your circumstances. It doesn't help to be aware of mortality, of hunger, of those types of stress. In fact, to be aware of those things, it might be impossible to survive, because all the time, even if you're not under that type of stress, you'll still be thinking about a future and a past based upon stress, and you live in anxiety of what's going to happen, and being anxious about what has happened. Consciousness under those circumstances wouldn't be a tool of survival. So obviously it would be in the interest of an organism under those circumstances to suppress any awareness of its true environmental status. And hominids, perhaps when they first speciated as being upright walking apes, they did that because of stress, because of environmental stress. Perhaps forests or their habitat retreated, and they were left high and dry, as it were. So you can think especially that upright walkers would have been very vulnerable to all of the larger predators. However, perhaps they had to be upright walkers to find new environments. So yeah, and that's some thinking that really hasn't been discussed as far as I can see in the literature. The first consciousness, or the first awareness, was explosive, because although hominids had the neural and biological capability to support consciousness, as Damasio says, most organisms have the capability to support consciousness, yet for many animals they'll be part of predator-prey cycles, and any consciousness, any self-awareness might be of a disadvantage and indeed be suppressed. So when consciousness finally did come to the fore, as for example the first example of cave art, Ice Age cave art, say 40,000 years ago, it was explosive. The art that was expressed was phenomenally good, and it took many tens of thousands of years for such a naturalistic art to appear again. The Egyptians never did it, perhaps took to the late Greek, early Roman empires before naturalistic art again appeared, that ability. So now we can see that during the period which art was expressed, hominids, well now human, let's say, were trying to recover their identity, the self, which had been suppressed during the period of upright walking in Africa. And a part of that was the expression of cave art. Maybe there were particular savants or particularly hominids who were well able to express themselves, and perhaps others couldn't. So the cave art actually supplied a source of knowledge and coax, if you like, consciousness from other hominids, other humans who didn't have those artistic abilities. There was an extreme psychological element to the development of consciousness during the period of cave art from 40,000 BC to 10,000 BC. There was a struggle to gain the self, to gain individual confidence, and this is manifest in cave art between 40,000 and 15,000, where there's no expression of face. All the bodily expressions are of stick people. There is no self-identity. Self was suppressed so far, it took many tens of thousands of years for it to emerge, to be cradled in caves, in safe places.